Hey there, sorry for this brief interruption. I want to say thank you for tuning into this podcast, and I hope that you're truly enjoying the guests that I have on today. I also want to make sure that you are aware that Fatherhood for the Rest of Us offers personal one-on-one coaching. If you are a father out there who's been afraid or don't know what the next step is to take for you and your ideal version of life, reach out to me. Let's have the conversation. We'll see if you and I are a good fit. And if you are, I just want to help you. I want to serve you and get you to where you want to go, right? I'm not trying to get you from A to Z. I just need to help you to get to your next step. And if I can help you do that, man, it's going to be amazing. And you'll see that you'll be up and running after those first couple of steps. If you are ready to take that next step, then head on over to reconstruct.brandonhanley.com and pick a time. There's a few Pines hostels available. If you don't find something that meets your timeline, reach out to me via email, brandon@fatherhoodfortherestofus.com, and let's have that conversation. We'll see if it's a good fit. I want to help you get to the level that you want to get to. Do it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey there, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I'm on here today with Mike Cruse, otherwise known as Papa Does Preach, and otherwise known as Dad AF. He is the father of 2 sons, 6 and a daughter of 18 months. He's just taking it day by day, mostly making it up as he goes along. Oh, and he writes stuff on the internet too. We met at Dad 2.0 recently. Really had a nice conversation over breakfast. I didn't really get the chance to catch up afterwards, but I'm really excited that we are here today having our conversation. And before we get started, I'd just like to ask you, what can we do to help you celebrate fatherhood today?
Celebrate fatherhood today. Well, I think, I think hug your kids more, man. Just like take a second out of your day and give them an extra hug. You know, the world stuff, craziness going on in the world today. Like that's just been my thing the last few days. It's just been, I give my kids a lot of crap because I love them, but at the same time, just because they get on my nerves. But the last week or so with all the craziness, I was giving an extra hug. Just, not going to kill you. Read an extra story. I don't know. Sit for an extra couple minutes at bedtime talking to them or something, Right. Just try one of those things.
Right on. Those are good things to celebrate fatherhood for sure. Now, we were talking a little bit before we got on here. Dad 2.0, for those who aren't familiar, is a dad blogger. It started out as, right, kind of a dad blogger conference where you unite with brands and other dad bloggers, and you get to kind of hang out in this community of all these dads that are out there kind of kicking ass and sharing their stories. And it's kind of like this daddy revolution, I'll call it, right?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to be a part of. You've gone to more than one. And you started as a blogger, and you're transitioning, or you're adding in podcasting. Let's talk a little bit about your Papa Does Preach and what got you into that.
Well, I've always been a writer, or at least I fancied myself a writer most of my life. I stopped writing for the most part after, I don't know, I think I was a young man or kid. I was like 18, and I think I was dating some girl at the time, and she read something I wrote and like totally tore it apart. And I stopped writing altogether, because got all up in my feelings. And then, fast forward a decade or so later, and actually more than that, about a decade and a half, I'm, married, and my new bride at the time was like helping me trying to work through some depression issues and stuff that I had with my family. And she was like, "Why don't you blog?" And I had heard of blogging, but never really knew what it was. And she's like, "You like to write?" And I was like, but I'm not one of those blogger nerds or whatever. And she's like, no, man. Like, more people are doing it now. It's not what you think it is. And so I kind of got on there and was just, I don't know, just telling funny stories, trying to be thinking I'm funnier than I probably really am. And then fast forward a few years later, we get pregnant and our kid is born. And the first 6 months, it was an absolute nightmare. We had a difficult, a whole year, but it was just a rough 6 months with our son. And I just needed a way to kind of like put out some stories, put out some stuff that was out there. And I started finding other guys on the internet that were talking about the same stuff. And a lot of them that were telling it from a humorous angle. Like one of the very first ones I found was Mike Julian L. from Dad and Buried. And I started really enjoying reading his because it's all about like talk about like I hate my kids and he's trying to kill me and this and that. But it's like you knew that he loved his son and he was just trying to vent. And then I found guys on the other side like a Mike Heenan who does At Home Dad Matters, and it was all about being a stay-at-home dad and raising his kids and being kind of like a fatherless dad himself. Like he didn't have a dad growing up in his life and or consistently in his life. And so I had it from both angles. And then I just started writing more. I started getting out there and I started doing it and I started enjoying it. I started talking about things that were affecting me. And then when I wanted to be taken more seriously and go to conferences and stuff, and actually maybe make some money, my wife suggested I change the name of my blog because it was called, what was it called? Like the dad, it's called something that was a brand already. And it's a dad like bag brand. And she's like, you might want to change that because you're going to get sued. And I was like, all right. She's like, we have no money, so you don't get sued. So I didn't know what to change it to. And I was like, well, I have no idea. Like my creativity is not there right now. What should I think? She goes, well, you love to hear yourself talk and you never shut up. So, and you're born like a child of the 80s. So why don't you call it Papa Does Preach? And I'm like, first off, I'm slightly insulted. Second off, that is genius, so I'm going to use it. But don't think it's because you told me to; it's because I wanted to. So,
Right, absolutely.
So there it was born, and then it eventually, just about a year or so down the road from that, I started working with brands, meeting other dads. I actually started working with more moms first, and then I started like branching out into dads and meeting them, and here I am now.
Right on. What are some of your favorite topics to cover on your blog? Like, what would have been some of the like most popular received as well?
So let's see. The very first one that was probably widely received and blew up, if you will, went viral, was a response to an article that was posted on Scary Mommy by a mom blogger, basically talking about, if something like dads told, like how dads tell birth stories different than moms. And she did this mock birth story from her, quote unquote, she said from her husband's perspective, but then she's like, no, it's just from a guy's perspective. And it was totally just insulting, just dude broed all out. Like it was relating, like, I don't even want to, it was just gross stuff, relating different parts of the body to things that no guy I know would do this or talk like this. And she compared like women giving birth to like veterans who go through war, which I also am a veteran. So that was insulting. And so I wrote a pretty pointed response and telling them where to go and how to get there and how dads deserve more respect than that and how that's insulting. And it blew up. And then other than that, like I would say, issues that I've talked a lot about with like my mental health, struggles with mental health, depression, anxiety, struggles around knowing how to raise a son when I didn't have a dad myself. Ironically enough, things like have actually kind of like died down since I had my daughter because I know even less about raising a girl. But I also feel like a lot of the stories I've told, they don't relate to my daughter like they did my son. Because it's like almost like, for lack of a better word, like man-to-man thing. But now I'm kind of waiting for that inspiration. It's like out there, like I can see it with her. I just don't know how to craft it yet. And so the writing has kind of taken a back seat to now my wanting to podcast and talk to people like you're doing and stuff. And so, but it's definitely out there. And I would say just, being more relatable. I can't tell you how many messages or emails I've gotten from people. Someone said like, man, I suffer from these things too. And I've never talked about it. No one knows. And I appreciate your voice. And other than that, my other most popular post was, I lost a bet to a friend of mine who's a mom blogger, and the bet was whoever loses, a Super Bowl bet, whoever lost had to write a blog of their choosing. And so she made me write about, sorry everybody, but she made me write about vaginas. And it to this day is my most popular and most shared post because I just went crazy on it and just was like, it was all comedy. And so it got picked up by a ton of outlets and stuff. So it was pretty well received. So
that's funny. Which Super Bowl?
It was the Super Bowl. It was Patriots and It's like, which one? They've been to like 9,000.
Right.
I forget who they were playing, and they won. Whoever it was, they were winning up until it wasn't the Falcons last year, but whoever it was the year before that, I think. Whoever it was they were playing, so I forget now. I think it was Seattle. It was Seattle, that one.
Okay.
And then Seattle lost at the very last second.
Okay. So you're talking a little bit about the mental health issues and military. I'm just curious if the two are tied together, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that's kind of where that's coming from, and then is the podcast and the blog, is that really helping you kind of get out there and release a lot of that?
Yeah, no. So to your first question, no, they're not related, but they're definitely connected. While I talk about being a veteran, and I am one, so I do celebrate that. But I also have a hard time taking credit as being a veteran because, like, I was never deployed, I never served, I never did anything that I was trained to do. Because at the time, honestly, when people ask me about my service and what it was like, I tell people it was like, I guess, going to college. I mean, like, we worked Monday through Friday, had the weekends off, because I was in the Army from 1997, and I got out September 7th, 2001. So I was home for 3 days before September 11th. And I know it's nothing like it was when I was in. So I don't even compare myself or anything that my friends have gone through or people who have gone in after me, even though many of my friends and everybody else like, no, you know, it doesn't matter, man. Like, you served, it doesn't matter. You know, life sent you in a different direction. And I know all that. I just still, to me, you know, I still give them way more credit. But no, I've always had depression and anxiety growing up in a very abusive household. No father in the picture. Those kinds of things were just there. And I think it's also just in my family as the more I look back on my childhood and stuff. As far as the podcast, yeah, it really has helped a lot. You know, when I started it, I think I did the first 3 episodes or 2 episodes, just me. And I don't know that I didn't feel like it was very good. And I have this thing about me. It's like, if it's not good from the start, I just want to quit. So, you know, I was like that with my writing too. If like a million people didn't tell me like, oh my God, this is amazing, like, I probably would have quit a million times by now. And that's something I struggle with because as a kid growing up, my mom encouraged me to quit everything. So
wow.
If you don't like it, just quit. And that's something that I struggle with. And I know I'll probably have a hard time with my son. If he wants to quit, I'll be like, no, never quit. But yeah, so I started interviewing some people. I started with my wife. She was my first guest. People were like, oh my God, this episode was amazing. And listening back to it, I was like, oh, this is really good. Like, we had a good flow. And then, yeah, I interviewed the guys at 2.0, and I just interviewed another friend a couple of days ago. And I just feel like the flow is getting better and better, and I'm enjoying it every time I do it. So yeah, it really is helping.
That's cool. The thing that I found, and I'm curious if you found this too, is kind of finding the guys in the blogging community and the podcast that you're now starting to do, finding kind of like this extra male community and bond that you didn't really kind of know existed before.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. As I said, when I first started, I really connected with a lot of ladies, a lot of moms, female writers, which I still do. There's a bunch of friends on that side of the arena. But once I was introduced to the Dad Blog group and was accepted in by our late founder, Orrin Miller, he accepted me in his last year before he passed. And I really started to connect with, I think I have a hard time like making like friends. I've always said as you get older, you have a harder time making friends and connecting to people because, as a kid or teenager, you just hang out with the people who like the same thing you like. And as you get older, it becomes more complicated because there's kids stuff, and then there's politics and faith or living situations, all, race, gender, all these things come into play that form our thoughts more than when we're adolescents. It's such a diverse group. I mean, we don't always get along, but that's the thing about like brotherhood. Like, I mean, you don't always get along with your brothers or your friends or whoever, but you know that they're going to be there for you. I can't tell you how many times that group has been there for me. I lost my job a month after my wife found out she was pregnant with our daughter. And they rallied, like, no one even said anything to me. And then, like, a week later, I got, like, a check in the mail from a bunch of guys came together and pulled a bunch of money together. And it's like, here, we hope this helps.
Wow.
And we've all done it for other guys. And when we can. Or people have said, hey, you know, if you need anything, let me know. If it's just, like, some money for groceries or something, or, like, anything I can do to help. And these are even guys who are probably in harder situations than I'm in. And you know, it makes me really thankful that I have it, you know.
No, it seems like a really the dad blogger community seems really tight. I know that I had a hard time getting in. I wasn't even trying to get in, but it just seems like, you know, they're out there looking out for each other.
Yeah,
I think it's a really cool community, and I think that we as men are finding that more, and social media is allowing that to happen for us to kind of get out there, test the waters to make sure it's okay to share who we are. And what's cool is, like, if you're like, oh, I said the wrong thing in this group, you don't ever have to go back to that group again. Right.
Yeah. Totally.
And so you kind of test the waters and see how it makes you feel. And that seems to be opening floodgates.
No, I agree. And that's the good thing about at least the dad blogger group that I'm in and we're in, that, they are, I would say, majority very progressive guys, very forward thinking. Even the guys that are in there that you would say are older, like, you know, Doug French, Aaron Gouvea's dad. I think he's still a member of the group, and a couple other gentlemen who are in there who are like dads. You know, they're grandddads now and all this stuff. And these guys are very open, and even if you don't share the same, you know, opinions or political leanings or whatever, for the most parts, people are able to share how they feel, be vulnerable with one another, and say, you know, if you're down about something, and, you know, guys, you know, I can't tell you how many times you see a story and someone, and I'm sure I've done it too, like they share a story and you're like, I'm sorry for venting, or I'm sorry for complaining. And instantly people will be like, man, don't apologize, man. Like, share what you got to say. Or, I mean, I'm sure you saw it at Dad 2.0. Like, I'm sure you saw some people hugging and people crying. Like,
yeah, man.
We don't get to see each other but once a year. Like, I think it's amazing that you could see someone that you can see once a year and you're brought to tears because you're happy.
Right.
I mean, I think that's awesome. So, and that you're both guys and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. I think it's really cool to watch some of the stereotypes begin to dissolve. And,
absolutely.
Being a good part of that. I was actually talking to another guy a little bit earlier, and he was talking about raising our children, and, you know, kind of how when we were children, that's when our identities were formed and shaped, and now we have an opportunity to actually form our children's identity, right, with what we know, and just kind of really shift the paradigm. And to be honest with you, I think it's an amazing power that we as fathers and parents have. And if we embrace it the way that you are and this daddy blogger community is, it's just endless amounts of potential.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think my wife and I, we live that every day. I mean, we're learning and growing ourselves. I mean, just over the past year, we've, you know, you realize that after being together for over a decade, like, both people change. Both people, you're not going to be the same person you married. And we both found out that we didn't really even know who we were when we got married. And so we going through our own kind of like counseling and stuff, and like a lot of marriages do. And it's nothing wrong with that. And we've come to realize that, like, neither one of us were given the tools to communicate the way we want to communicate, or to express our emotions the way we want to express them, even though our parents probably thought they were doing the best job at that. We weren't given the right tools, and, you know, to kind of get out of any kind of funk or feeling of inadequacies, you know, our therapist has been like, you know, for the lack of skills that you two had coming into a marriage, you may feel like it's not a great job, but you guys have done a bang up job, you know, without those. Think about, like, you painted this portrait and you think it's ugly, but no one gave you a brush to paint with.
Right.
And you still did a great job, right? And so we're like, yeah, okay, we see where you're coming from. And so now we're learning all these skills, all these new ways of communicating, new ways of, as our therapist put it, you stay in your lane. You stay in your lane. She stays in her lane. You take care of yourself. She takes care of herself. And eventually you guys are going to come together. And we've learned that there's more. There's 3 people in a relationship. There's her, there's me, and then there's the we.
Nice.
And we take care of you. She takes care of her. That automatically strengthens the we. And then we'll have more in our cup to give like to our kids.
Right.
And be like, now we want to pass this on to you. We want to teach you how we're going to communicate. And maybe down the road, they feel like we didn't give them everything. But the difference will be that we'll say, well, we're willing to listen now. We're willing to hear what we could do better.
Sure.
Or what did we not do correctly, and we should fix this. So I think that's the difference in generations now.
No, yeah, it sounds like, we're finding more tools. We have access to more tools that
Absolutely.
And maybe they've always been available. We just didn't know where to go find them. And now, like with the internet again, and just people kind of being a little bit more open and vulnerable, I feel like it's hippie 2.0. If I'm not lying, man.
Sure. No, absolutely.
So and it's really interesting to see it as it kind of unfolds. It's really a lot of fun, actually, just kind of watching your life unfold and be like, wow, this is interesting.
Right.
But what are some of the tools? What's like one tool that you have found that your therapist has given to both of you? It sounds like, to stay in your lanes is one. What is like one other one that you would share for another dad who's having some issues?
Well, I think this one actually would help. It's helped with both communicating with my wife, with us communicating with each other, as well as with my son right now, who we found is emotional. My wife and I both, like we say, he's our perfect tornado. So this kid literally is like the poster child. If like you looked up all the feels, he's that picture. And so he gets overwhelmed very easily. And we're pretty sure he probably has anxiety and stuff too. But he gets overwhelmed and he gets really upset with himself sometimes and says that his brain is telling him, that he's not a good person, yada, yada. Mm. And so when there's issues or when he misbehaves or he doesn't follow instructions or something we got to get across, I try to communicate with him. We both do, like we do with each other, in that we let him know that like he's one country and we're another country, our own countries, and we're coming to visit. And while we're coming to visit, like we're a guest in your country and we're here to listen. And so it's listening, like truly listening to what they have to say, because I think you'd be surprised as much as we say, and I say it still too, in that, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just rambling or he's just making something up. But they actually do a lot of the time know what they're talking about. They just can't get it out. And so if you just listen, even if it's annoying, you take the time to say, I hear you. I hear what you're saying, and then repeat it back to them and say, so what I hear you saying is, and repeat it back to them, and then say something like, did I get you? Did I understand you correctly? And if they're like, yeah, or no, or whatever, you say, well, is there more? Is there more? It's that, is there more, the did I get you, and is there more, that lets them know I'm not going anywhere. I'm here to listen to you as long as you need to talk. And then as soon as they say like, no, that's it, that's all, that's what was bothering me, or that's what I feel, you empathize and say, you know what, I understand why you would feel that way. If I was feeling like you're feeling, I totally understand why you would feel that way. And then just get them, relate to their emotions. Like I can imagine right now you feel, I took away your TV time. I can imagine that you're angry and that you're sad and that you're mad at daddy because he did that, and these things, or maybe you're upset with yourself because you know that that's what led to this. And you'll find that they go, yeah, I am kind of upset with myself. Whereas if you're just yelling at someone, or like your spouse, you're like, hey man, well, you didn't tell me. If you're just complaining at someone, they're going to be like, you know what, I'm not listening to this. I'm checking out.
Right.
And I feel like that's what we do a lot in society now, is we just try to, whoever out yells the other one wins, or they think they win. So long story short is just really listen and just make sure to reassure them that like I'm here. Like I'm here and I'm listening as long as you need to talk. That would be my skill that I would hand out.
Nice, man. No, hey, it's a great one. And I think that anybody can be a better listener. I know that I think that if it was me and I was sitting in your shoes, it sounds like your wife says the same stuff to you that mine says to me. I like to talk a lot and and whatnot. And it's not so much that I like to talk a lot. I just have things I want to say, and that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay. Very cool. That's definitely a great tip. And I think it really shines a light on fatherhood isn't done by itself, right? We don't do this. We're not doing this alone. Most of us, you and I aren't. And we really have to work with our significant other to make it all kind of a United Nations, if I'm just going to go ahead and use some of your countries.
Yeah. No, truly, yeah.
Welcome to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us with Brandon Handley. Because you're already great at everything else, why not fatherhood too?
Hey there, and welcome to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. This is Brandon Handley. I am the creator and founder of Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I want to say thank you for choosing to spend your time with me today on Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I also want to just encourage you, if you could, to go over to the podcast on iTunes, download it, subscribe to it, and leave a review if you have found any part of this at all to have an impact on your life. That will help others to find the show and listen to it and get the same type of enjoyment that you are out of it. Also, if you are a father and if you're looking for a place that you can go celebrate fatherhood or perhaps even share some struggles and get some advice or find some like-minded men, I strongly encourage you to stumble on over to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, the private Facebook group, and ask to join. I'll let you right in. That's going to do it for right now, guys. And please stay tuned for today's podcast.
What does fatherhood mean to you, Mike?
It's really hard to define sometimes because I feel like it's ever changing for me. Because again, I didn't have any examples growing up. I'm thankful that I had some strong male figures later in my life, like in my teen years and early 20s. And even now, even new guys I meet now, they're guys who I've met who have been great inspirations to me. And some of them are older and they're like father figure, but now that I can relate man to man, it's different. I would say ultimately it's, I guess it's being present and it's showing, well, at least for my son, I think it's different for my son and for my daughter. For my son, it's showing him that these old ways of what it means to be a man, they're done and they're dead. They're outdated. I'm not saying they're wrong, like the things like providing and taking care of, like those things are not wrong, but the macho machismo stuff, that stuff is dead and gone. And it's to show him that his feelings are not his enemy. They're actually a great benefit. And that if he embraces these things and embraces the equality of the other half of the planet, which is like his sister, it's going to be a much better world out there. And that we all have a responsibility, man or woman, boy or girl, or whatever gender you identify with, to get out there and do something to change the world. All that applies to my daughter, but it's the same thing as to show her that I'm helping raise the next generation of men that aren't going to be. Hopefully we can start to decrease this fear of what other men have brought to women with, misogynistic treatment and, I can't even tell you the fears I already have of like her going to college and growing up, or leaving the house. Like these things, are in my head already, and she's only 18 months, and it's just like I can't be there for her every hour of every day, And so it's to show her that not all men are like that, but that those men are out there, and that hopefully I'm raising at least one in this next generation that will not ever do something to make a woman feel less than, and instead will be out there fighting, continuing the fight, carrying on, picking up the flag when I'm gone and other men are in my generation are gone, and hopefully make some more progress inch by inch, man.
Absolutely. No, that's great. That's great. Fatherhood's a tricky one, man. I think it's great that it's actually very different for just about every dad, every father you ask. And so that's why it's just, I enjoy the question. Now, so you didn't have a father figure growing up, but you did have a couple of strong male models. What were some of those strong male models like for you? And what did they allow you to see about fatherhood or manhood?
Yeah. So I guess the main one would be my best friend. Him and his brother are like my brothers, and their dad is like my dad, and he's always looked out for me for my teen years and even to now. And, he refers to me as his son and always checks in on me and all that stuff. And he was a hard dude. I mean, he was a loving dude, but he was a hard dude, and, he just pulled no punches. And I mean, he would call us on the carpet, and, I've always celebrated him for that. Like, he never beat around the bush. Him and his wife, so my friend's mom, they got divorced, I think our junior year in high school, and it really messed up my friend. I mean, he went through a lot of depression about it and stuff. And you think a lot of examples you see is guys who've already basically raised their sons probably would check out, which is sad to admit. But he didn't. He was as involved, even helping out anywhere he could, like with his ex, my friend's mom. They're good friends still now. And while the divorce was not over good things, they still care very deeply. And they're both remarried. They both have grandkids now, and they both, still care about one another very much. And it showed me that, what it meant to be a man was to take responsibility for your actions, get out there and keep at your responsibilities. Don't slack off. Don't do these things that we as young boys wanted to do. Try to cut corners and get away with crap and do the least to gain the most kind of stuff. And I've always joked, and I do this every year, like on his birthday or Father's Day, I always tell the same story about how he used to, frankly, not literally, because he wasn't one of those guys, but he used to kick our ass, verbally, if he caught us messing up. And I can remember the first time I tried to leave, when he was digging into his son, my friend, we got in trouble. And I was like, I'm going to step out. This is between you. And he goes, no, you sit your ass down too, because I'm going to talk to you too. And I was like, oh, snap. And I'm like, yes, sir. And I've never said yes to anybody in my life. And I was like, yes, sir. And I sat down, and he dug into us. And I always was like, damn, man.
What did you guys do? What happened?
I think we skipped school or something like that. We skipped out early because my mom called us out early. She was the knucklehead who would help us leave school and stuff. And he found out about it, and he basically told my friend he can't be around my mom anymore, but not me. He's like, it's not your fault, it's her fault. And so he would just dig into us about go to school. Yeah, you may suck, but you're gonna look back and you're gonna realize you didn't give it all your effort, and you're gonna get in trouble. It's gonna screw up your future. And yeah, he used to always be like, dude, your dad's such a hard ass. And he's like, I know. And then when he found out I was joining the Army, he's a veteran himself. It was probably the softest I ever saw him. Now he's total pussycat. I mean, the guy's, he's getting older, and he would still probably kick our ass if he wanted to, but he's just, I want to see my grandkids. He runs his marathons. He's an older guy now, and he doesn't care about that stuff so much anymore, about yelling or anything. And when I joined the Army, he was just like, I'm really proud of you. And I never had a guy tell me they were proud of me growing up. Yeah. And I was just like, wow, thanks. I was just moved. And he's like, you're doing good things. even if you're only going just for 4 years, like you're doing good things, you're going to learn so much, you're going to grow. And when I came back, like he told me, he's like, I can see like you're a man now, like you're a man now. You've learned to take care of yourself, you know. And he used to joke like, you know, kick my son in the ass, try to get him to do it now. And so like, you know, and so it's just, I mean, it's my pop, you know, and I mean, he cares about all, it's like a whole group of kids. I'm like, I always tell the story, I'm like, this is a guy who had his own kids and didn't have to take the time to care about all these other knuckleheads, but he did. He was always there, and he still is. Like whenever we're struggling or something, he's like, hey son, how you doing? Like, what's going on? Can I help you out? Like, you know, do you just need to talk? And, you know, and it's like, it's just good to know that there are guys from that past generation who are out there, you know, and maybe we just don't know it because we didn't give the time to recognize what they were doing, you know, or they didn't let down their walls or whatever. But, you know, I'll be forever grateful for him for that. So
That's great.
hopefully I can pass it on to someone else. Maybe my son will have a friend, or my daughter will have a friend someday who will need that, and maybe I can be that for them. That'd probably be the biggest honor to him that I could do. So
Absolutely, dude. That's great. That's awesome. The thing that you'd mentioned about you know, having kind of the anxiety and depression, how's that working into parenthood for you? How are you combating it? How are you trying to keep that your own issue and not your children's and families, I guess?
that's slippery slope. I think you know, every day it's a new battle. I think for the longest time I fought against the idea, even though I'm a big supporter of, you know, therapy and medication if need be. I was a walking, hypocrite. You know, I was an exact opposite. My wife kept talking to me over the years about possibly looking into talking to someone, and I was like, no, I'm fine. I've dealt with this my whole life. Like, I can do this. And when my daughter was born, we realized, no, we can't. We need to go talk to someone. And so both of us went and talked to respectively someone separate. And, you know, I really started to explore the idea of maybe I do need to be on medication. Maybe I do need to try these things, which, you know, I never thought about anxiety. It was always just depression. And in talking to my psychiatrist, and he was like talking about things I've done and taken before, he's like, you know, it really sounds like you actually have anxiety more than depression. He's like, because they actually can have similar traits. And so we started doing some exploration, and which I thought was great. It wasn't just what's that? Yeah, here, take this. It was some deep diving emotional exploration. You know, I had to do like homework. I had to like really search my feelings on stuff. And so we kind of came to a right combination of things with like just meditation, therapy, as well as taking medication. And I found that it's a great combination. When I still have moments where I have panic attacks, or I still have moments where I have depression stuff, but it's nothing like it was before. And as far as not making it my family's, I have to really you have to really be in the moment. And I'm not perfect, and I never will be, in that step back and say, this is about me. This is not about anybody else. This is about me. And it's how I'm receiving whatever's happening at that time. And I didn't learn that tool until the thing that my wife and I are doing right now with our counseling, and is to say, you know, get rid of the language of like, well, that person made me feel XYZ, or this made me feel, and it's not. You have to own that. Like, you made yourself feel that way. Yes, this had an effect, but you chose how to feel. And so now that I've been practicing this mindfulness and practicing saying, okay, how did that make me feel? Or how did I receive that? Or if my wife says something that I didn't like, instead of blowing up and being like, oh, you're just being like this, I say, well, hey, I didn't receive that well, and this is why. And, you know, now that we're where we are now, 9.5 times out of 10, my wife would be like, oh my God, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was this. Or I've done the same thing with her. She'll be like, hey, I didn't receive that well. That made you feel like you were dismissing my feelings. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I was saying this. And it gives you a chance to try it again. And as well as yourself, who would normally blow up and get upset, to say, I'm going to give you I want a second chance at this for both of us. And if it's even a third or a fourth or a fifth chance, sometimes you have to do it over and over to really get there. But it's keep giving chances to those situations. And I think it's just realizing that it's, like I said, later, it's me, and that's it's not them. Like, they don't cause me to feel this way. They are all beautiful people. They are all wonderful, and they all deserve the same love that I'm looking for. And we all struggle. So we're all there to help each other. So.
Absolutely, man. I love it. Sounds like you guys are really working through things where, and I have no idea whatsoever really about your relationship and kind of how it led up to this. But I think a lot of people would give up at this point. And you want to talk about what it's been like to work through it and what some of the rewards, I think, intrinsically have been?
Yeah. You're right. I mean, and it is sad to say that, I've written a post about this a while back, when I thought we hit our low. Every time you think you've hit your lowest moment, sometimes you find out there's actually another basement. At least I have. I am hoping, that this was our last basement, because I do think that my wife and I, we truly love each other. I do think we are each other's person, and that we belong together. We have had, adult conversations, and we've had screaming conversations about not wanting to be together, or are we right for one another? And they both felt the same, and that was crappy. And I think it both led us to believe that we are meant to be together. Now, how do we make it so we're enjoying it? Like, how do we get to reap the benefits of what we're looking for? And so, yes, this process, several times I thought, like, I don't have it. I'm not strong enough anymore. I don't have it. I can't, and I'm sure she has felt the same way. However, I recognized even the other day, it's not all credit to her, but I did thank her the other day for her stubbornness, which I probably never would have done before, because the times that I have expressed that I can't, like, I don't have it anymore. I'm not strong enough for this. She's like, I don't care. We're not giving up. I'm like, we're gonna fucking fix this. And I'm like, I don't want to anymore. And she's like, I don't care. We're going to. And so,
Nice.
So I give her credit with that, and that I needed her to stay strong for me in that moment, and she was. And I'm sure I have done things for her, and I know I have in certain areas, outside of the counseling, where I've been the strength for her, and she's reminded me of that. And so, as far as reaping the benefits, I think that we found that we do truly love one another, and that we want to spend our life together, and that we want to fight for it. Where I think that, I think a lot of people, I don't want to say most, but maybe statistically it would show that at least half, or leaning towards most, people would say, you know what, it's too hard, so let's just cut it. Right. And just go our separate ways. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not judging, because I know that some people, maybe that is the right thing for them. I just don't think it, even though at the time I thought it was, I don't think it's the right thing for us. And I don't think it would have been better for us. I do think that we are meant to be here, and I think we have rediscovered that. I think we have actually discovered the happiness we thought we had, or the things we loved about one another, but we saw them more than we actually felt them. And I think we feel them now. I think that we're like, yeah, we do really mean those things. We do really feel those things about one another. Our kids are awesome. We are doing a good job. Yes, we're human. We mess up, but we're learning to be vulnerable and forgiving, and we're learning all these skills that we thought we had, and we're getting rid of, we're decluttering. We're decluttering literally around our house, getting rid of junk. We're becoming almost minimalists now, but we realize we're doing that in our life too. We're like, we don't need this crap anymore, this baggage, this these hurt feelings, these stuff that we're like, what's that going to do for us, right?
Right.
So we're both our health, taking better care of ourselves, losing weight, doing all these things that, we're like, we want to be healthier, we want to be happier, and we're now doing it together. So, but at the same time, embracing our individuality as well.
Right.
So,
You were mentioning earlier, stay in your own lanes,
yeah. It's like, I do my thing and she does her thing as far as our health stuff, and there's no judgment. There's no like, hey, like, well, do what I do and that's better. Or like, I saw you do this. No, it's like, well, okay. I mean, if this is working for you, that works for you. And if we see one another slacking off, we're like, hey, I just want you to know, so, I hope you're okay. Is there anything, I can help with, whatever. And they're like, no, I got it. Or yeah, I was just slacking. Thanks for reminding me, and I'll get back to it. And
Right.
it's more me. She reminds me that I'm slacking because I'll sleep in. I'm tired, and so
It sounds like you two, it sounds like you're growing together, and that's really cool to hear. And it's really cool to hear, that you're being open with us fathers listening, and any women that are listening, and that there are struggles. These are real things, and that you can work through it. You got to recognize, why you guys even jumped into the relationship to begin with. Kind of remember what it was that you all got together for, and try and rekindle that some way. I guess it all kind of makes sense now when you say rekindle. But what would you like to thank your children for bringing into your life? Let's say 10 years goes by. What would you like to thank them for?
I think I would thank my son I would thank him for, I don't know. I mean, first off, for making me a father. I mean, he's the reason I'm a dad now. He just being, I would thank him for just like showing me and always reminding me every day that to be vulnerable and he's such a sweet, loving kid. And I hope he hangs on to that forever. And I would just thank him for being that way and reminding me that, being a guy doesn't mean that because you have to be ornery or hard. Like, you could be sweet and loving and caring and still be a guy and still enjoy guy things, whatever I guess that means. And as far as my daughter, I've said before is that, posts and stuff, is that I feel like she's literally saved my life. I said that about my wife when we first met. I really feel like she saved my life in that moment, because I was really depressed and really going downhill, and I just didn't know how much more I had left in me with the abusive relationship with my mom and everything else. And it just seemed like I turned my life around when I met her, and she just kept me going. It was always encouraging me. And I feel like my daughter's kind of done the same thing, in that she helped my wife and I both realize that we had a long way to go and a long road to hoe with dealing with our battle with these things. And she has just continued, like her smile every day and all this, it just reminds you why we're here. And it doesn't mean that people who don't have kids that should apply to them to go out and have a kid. No, it's just, that's my reason. You find your reason. That they are my reason. My wife and my kids are my reason. And my wife will always still be my number one. Some bristle at that, but she will always be, because my saying has always been, we were before they were. And the we will always have a slight edge over the they. But my kids are an amazing gift from the universe that I've been given, and I will cherish them every day. And I hopefully that we will have that kind of relationship going forward always. And they will never know the kind of crap that, I went through. So.
Right. Got it. I love it, man. Very beautiful. And I love that. I love that you put your wife back in kind of at number one, right? Like, I love the children. And one of the things that we found in our own relationship was that the children somehow snuck in ahead of us. Right. And it took us a little bit to realize again that we need to refocus on each other. So I love that you're pointing that out as well. Mike, I want to say thank you for jumping on today. It's been an awesome conversation. We may have to do a part two, or we'll reconnect again and see where things are. Where should I send people to go connect with you?
Well, you can find pretty much every day telling funny jokes about my kids on, Facebook, Papa Does Preach. I'm also, like you said earlier, starting up the podcast, the Dad AF Podcast, has a Facebook page. You can also find me on iTunes. If you like reading, check me out at papadospreach.com. I'm always over there talking about something. So other than that, that's where I am. I'm around.
Awesome, Mike. Thanks for connecting.
Thanks, man.